So in this video, I'm going to talk about this truck idea I've got and this proof of concept for it I've built. And it's got some funny things going on with it. And to fully explain it, I think I've got to go back and talk about some of the issues that we have run into in the past with just basically all the other plant trucks. And basically one of the big hurdles we've always had is trying to develop a good system for resistance. And the big reason why it's been such a problem, the biggest reason is actually this. The system has a raising center of gravity, which means the hanger actually moves up and down. So you can really easily use bushings to limit rotation. And you have the bushing seat and the bushings on the other side, and it fights the rotation. But if the hanger's trying to move up and down, it doesn't allow that system to work. And in fact, it makes all the different systems we've tried more complicated. And we've tried lots and lots of different bushing solutions or resistance solutions. We've tried different ways of making bushings work, and we've tried different bushing designs, and inevitably we always come back to the same real basic, simplest solution of just using resistance bands over the top to hold the hanger down in place. More recently, however, I believe in about 2018 or so, we were playing around with this design, which is a simplification of the P2, which would have been this style of truck. So one of these things that was being explored in this new design was to use a bushing, but not using a bushing as resistance, using a bushing to help retain the motion of the hanger. So rather than using just a slot like this that fits a bolt, now we're using a bushing, and the bushing is pressing against the hanger and is providing support, but more importantly, that bushing is now moving up and down with the hanger. And the bushing is round, so it doesn't resist the twisting of the deck, but it could. If this bushing was square and the slot is square, it would resist being twisted. So basically, I've realized with this design, you've allowed the action of the bushing to exist independent from the up and down motion that was complicating it this whole time. I thought, well, let's make a truck that's designed around having the bushings slide around. And that's essentially what I've got here. This is not the most practical design, but this is simply the easiest way to build it. And what I've done is, so I've taken this slot here, and what would have been the slot here, and I flipped it 90 degrees. So now, instead of being along this plane, it's along this plane, and you can see it here a little bit. Yeah, there's a slot. And the slot's now on the base plate instead of the hanger. The hanger is really simple. It's just an axle with some bushings on it. And these are double the height of tall bushings. And it's really, really simple. So with the normal P2, this is how you've got it working. You've got the hanger which has this flat spot under the axle. And this flat spot rests on a cam, and it rolls across the surface of this cam. And you can see how that slot is allowing it to move up and down, you know, and then it's also limiting the travel. On this proof of concept design, similar thing. You've got the cam and you've got the axle. This time, however, it's got these giant bushings. And these giant bushings are riding on the cam. And as the hanger rolls, because of the slot, it can move up and down and follow the cam. And if I tighten the bushings, they're able to provide resistance, and they're able to move up and down in the slot and provide all that resistance at whatever height they need to be at in order to allow it to follow the cam. So now you've got this sliding bushing system. This is just a complete inside-outification and reworking of everything that's going on with the P2, but just in really different ways. That opens up a lot of possibilities. So it's not just the fact of the resistance that has got me so excited. The hanger is an axle and some bushings. And the bushings are the surface for riding on the cam, but they're also the surface for riding against the channel wall, which is really cool. And in fact, I think that this design could work with just one channel wall, which was kind of what this design was kind of going for. It's got just the one supporting side on this side, and it's just being pushed in by the bushing on the other. And basically, you could almost think of this as you've got a big flat bearing surface here and two rollers. And in that sense, it kind of turns the whole thing into a sort of thrust bearing, like what you're seeing on the Rojas. And so you end up with lots of good control and lots of stability against slop. One of the things that's also cool is if you just change the angle of this wall, you could potentially change the base plate angle without having to change anything else. The last thing is, that's really, really cool, is this axle is surrounded by polyurethane on all sides. It's riding on a polyurethane cam through the polyurethane of the bushings, and the bushings are interfacing with the wall, which is guiding the turning. And so you have the potential for a really just comfortable and yet really fairly precise ride. So there's also some really obvious like deal breaker flaws with this design. The biggest of which is the fact that if you were to actually mount this way around underneath a board and stick wheels on it, like this size, your base plate's basically dragging on the ground and is extending really high above your axle unless you're really high into a turn like that. The reason why the normal other plants don't do that is because the slot is in the hanger, whereas on here the slot is in the base plate. So even though this proof of concept proves the concept, it's also equally impractical. But I feel like it shows enough new principles that are just ready to be applied elsewhere. I'm excited to see what might stem from this. So for now, Longboard Technology, over and out.